It's a great day to be back at the tavern. Jack and I just got here. We've poured our favorite drinks. Hopefully you have yours, whatever that may be. We went a little long last week, Jack, but we had a lot of information to talk about. And besides, when you're at the tavern, we lose track of time.
That's true. There's no clocks in the tavern.
No, there's not. We just had so much information. We think we're going to start cutting these podcasts up to less than an hour, make it shorter, and hopefully do a live podcast by June. I mean, our membership's starting to grow, and we'll make a decision soon and let everybody know.
All right. Sounds like a plan. So, with that being said, there's nothing further to do
but start the show.
What to do. All right. Afternoon, everybody. So my introduction today is going to be based on events that we had on the news today. We all know what happened in Minnesota and the awful mistake of the shooting of an unarmed perpetrator. We feel this was an accident that could have been avoided if the experts didn't try and change our profession. So, there you have it. I think the Founding Fathers, they had foreseen problems like this. And it's written in Article 1, Section 9, Clause number 3. When you say Clause number 3, that's actually paragraph. It states, no bill of attainder or ex post facto laws shall be passed. So, a bill of attainder is an act of legislative declaring a person or a group of persons guilty of some crime and punishment, then, after, without a trial, punishment. And that seems to be our opinion. That's what's happening in Minnesota. You know, with the defunding the police, telling us how our job caused the deaths of incidents with these experts that they call themselves. So, here's one of the self-proclaimed experts, Representative Tlaib. She literally wrote a tweet, and it goes, quote, "It wasn't an accident, period. Policing in our country is inherently and intentionally racist," end quote, period. This is what I mean, you know, this is what Dennis and I were talking about. When a state elects a representative like this, it affects the whole country. You know, it doesn't just affect that state. You know, it wasn't an off day. This is how she truly believes. You know, so it affects the whole country. And I don't know what country she lives in, but she doesn't live in the one that I was raised in. And if this is not the country she wants to live in, well, maybe she should forego her representative spot and find another country where the police are inherently and intentionally racist. So, wake up, stop vetting these politicians so we don't have to read what these ignorant hacks think they know, because it's not much.
Right. Can you believe that? A sitting congresswoman makes a statement like that before all the facts come in. So last week we talked about Article 5 of the Constitution and how each state can reel in their elected officials in Congress. And when 2/3 of the states file a petition for a constitutional convention, one must be granted, and then when 3/4 of those states agree on changes, the Constitution is then amended. And we said last week, we're going to start right here in South Carolina. So we're going to file a petition and hand it to our state legislators, and it's called the Convention of State Action, which is an application for a convention, which under Article 5 of the Constitution we can have. So we're going to put it up on our website so you can download it. It's a universal petition. And the more people we get to sign, the better chance we have to get that Constitutional Convention and put term limits on these so-called hacks, as Jack calls them.
Yeah.
You know, if your state legislator doesn't accept this petition, it's a clear indication they don't care what you and I think. They're all talkers, and they'll stay in power any way they can. And we believe this is the step in the right direction to at least find out where our state legislators stand on term limits. When more than 80% of the people want term limits, they better start listening to us, or we can fire them and vote them out of office. And we'll find people who will sponsor term limits like Senator Cruz in the Senate and Congressman Norman in Congress. I've written our congressional member, Tom Rice. This isn't the first time I wrote him. I want to find out where he stands on term limits. I suggest everyone listening do the same by emailing your congressional members to find out if they co-sign this bill and where they stand on term limits. Again, if they didn't co-sponsor this, they don't want term limits. And if they blow you off, they could care less what you think and what Jack and I think. But, we think it's time to stand together, stand united, and take actions necessary to get them out of office. We're also going to reach out to other groups in our area, like the Horry County Republican Committee, the South Strand Republican Club. And we're going to even reach out to Democratic committees because folks of all political groups want term limits. If it's 80%, it's not just Republicans, it's everybody. And if we can find anybody else in our state that wants to help get the petition, reach out to us. I believe the silent majority can't be silent anymore. This is the first step in taking back control of our government, and we need everyone's help to do that. Again, check out our website, USCG National 2021, on GoDaddy sites. So, Jack, I was looking at Facebook, our Facebook page the other day, the United States Constitutional Group.
That's your first mistake, looking at Facebook.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Facebook, but I do believe it serves a good purpose when we're not kicked off, put Facebook jail, where we can express our feelings. It's a good way for people to meet, But this one statement caught my eye, and it says, "As we watch our country fall, I did not vote for this. I hope you can say the same." Now, this stood out to me for several reasons. And the first reason is, even though 70 million people didn't vote for this president, whether we like it or not, he is still the president of the United States. Now, I know we didn't vote for him. And I know 70 million people didn't, because we're more conservative. And, please correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Well, you showed some good numbers last week that they actually had more people that are eligible to vote at 100% rate. And I don't think this country's ever had 100% rate voting. And those numbers that they showed us were obviously wrong.
Right. But having said that, it doesn't mean we sit on the sidelines and let whatever happens happen. Just because our candidate didn't win, we still have an obligation to fight for what we believe in. Term limits, energy dependence, good paying jobs, securing our borders, and protecting our citizens, which has been a major failure this past year, not only with the federal government, but local governments as well.
Yeah, well, you're right. Just like Dennis said, we have a federal government that's failing horribly in all the categories. In any kind of category to run a true republic form of government that we have. However, maybe some of the representatives in the border states should take action. It may take them to the Supreme Court, because in Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3. Now, again, like I say, when I say Clause number 3, it's Paragraph 3 under Section 10 in Article 1. It says that the states are not allowed to do certain things. And one of them is to engage in war. And there's an exception. Unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. So, maybe these border states should start taking action with their reserves. And if the federal government doesn't like it, if they feel, well, then they'll have to take them to court. But it stops the madness in the meantime, in the interim, you know what I mean?
Right.
So if they activate their reserves and send them to the border, they are being flooded. They're not being cared for. So send your troops down there. Stop them. And if the government says, you can't do that, we only have the right to do that, well, take us to court, because it says right there, Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3, that we can. if you're actually being invaded and in such an imminent danger as it will not admit of delay. You know, they got ranchers down there. They're saying that the federal government's telling them, don't leave the house because we don't have enough personnel to protect you.
Yeah, but the governor of each state, they have the power under their constitution to call forth the militia to enforce state laws. And they're not doing it.
I think they're scared. I think they're afraid to have to go to the Supreme Court on that. But I think this is, I mean, you know, show your resolve.
Right.
Show your toughness. You're Texas. You're Arizona. You're Western states. You know, fight it.
So the next reason why that statement stood out to me is that the United States Constitution applies to each and every one of us. Every one of us as a citizen. And if you're 18 or older, you have that right to vote. You can choose any candidate you want. Yes, there was voter fraud. But at this present time, that's water under the bridge. We need to move on and unify this country. We've said it before, Jack. We live in a divided America right now. But complaining about the last election isn't going to get us anywhere but frustrated, agitated, and wondering what went wrong. I mean, we can do this if we stand together. We can't leave it to the next generation to solve the problems today. We have to take the bull by the horns and steer it in the direction we want to go. And we do that at the ballot box. Voting for candidates who believe in term limits, that serve their constituents, and have a strong understanding and passion for the United States, or for the Constitution of the United States. Not just using it to advance their own political party.
Listen, people, you remember how you grew up. Let's bring our kids and grandkids back to that time. It's not that far ago. And, you know, the Constitution and the Founding Fathers gave us the ability to do it. It's at the ballot box. They also gave us, you know, we're a country of action. So to you border states, take the action. Take the action required. Put your reserves at the border. Wherever there's a hole in that fence, put a soldier. That, you know, now your soldier is protecting his neighbor, his and her neighbor. So put him there, and I bet you they'll do a terrific job because that's what they do.
Yep, they do. So the last reason it stands out to me is, you know, even though we didn't vote for President Biden, we don't want our country to fail. We've come too far in a short period of time, just over 200 years. You know, right now our political parties aren't what we imagined they would be. Partisan politics is a major issue we have. As you said several times, these politicians are hacks and have created this problem. And the constituents, we've let them get away with it.
Yeah, and, you know, we have to ask ourselves again and again and again, Dennis, why are they causing this problem? There's a reason why... And my philosophy, and I believe Dennis feels the same way, they're saying watch what the right hand's doing and the left hand is doing everything it should not be doing.
You know, so we're part of the blame.
Absolutely.
You know? I mean, we can play the blame game like they do, or we can come up with a game plan to get fresh faces that believe in the Constitution and understand what their roles are. Not to lobbyists and special interests, but we the people. The government is ours. It's not theirs. You know, we can roll over on our backs, or we can put up one hell of a fight. The choice is ours, Jack. Not anyone else's, but ours.
Yeah, it is. And everybody listening to this podcast, you know, we're not to where we want to be, obviously. We're hoping to get many, many more listeners. But we want listeners, and we want active listeners. We want people to understand what we're saying, why we're saying it, look into it yourself. Now, react to it.
You know, this constitutional group will not roll over on our backs. We're not going to let these politicians dictate what they want. This isn't about them. They work for us. It's what we want and demand.
Remember, we allow them to rule us through consent.
That's right. So, like I said in my opening statement, we talked about Article 5 of the Constitution and how each state can ask for that constitutional convention. Again, we're gonna start here in South Carolina. All right, we're going to get this petition going. And we're going to show our state representatives that we want to reel in these congressional hacks and that we're serious about this. And we're going to have the power to take back the government.
Yeah. So this group, we started, Dennis and I, with the intentions of getting power, of this government back to the people, the constituents. The largest political party there is the constituents. As Dennis said, this group has written a letter, an application for a convention of the states. This takes a lot of work. Dennis and I are going to start work in South Carolina. We're going to take this letter to the representatives and other political groups and campaign on it. If you listen to this program, it is time for you to continue listening to us and formulate your plan for your state, remembering as you do this how great this country and our founding fathers were. It is time for the American people to stop listening and start acting on behalf of yourselves, for this country, and everyone who sacrificed for this country, dead and alive. Show your gratitude by doing the heavy lifting now. Do it. It's hard work. It's a lot of work. Put time away each day for it, even if it's a half an hour. Again, educate yourself. Education is power.
I found this Convention of States. I was reading the book, and other states have already done this, and it's a continuing petition. So it doesn't have to just be done in 6 months. It can be done in 3 or 4 years, but each state needs to sign on, and I think we can do it. So next topic we'd like to talk about.
Don't forget the other round of drinks, though.
Oh, yeah, we need them.
Yeah, you need that extra lubrication to get the brain box working.
Yeah, sometimes you do. But the mainstream media is creating a false narrative and with these riots last summer and over last week's police shooting incident in Minneapolis.
Yeah, they're creating this false narrative through empty suits they call experts.
Yeah. So under Article 4, Section 4, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republic form of government and will protect each of them against invasion and the application of the legislature or of the executive. But the legislators cannot be convened, against domestic violence. Our federal government as well as our state governments have failed miserably over the last year. Democrats and even some Republicans still remain silent during all these riots of last summer while people were losing their homes, their businesses, and their livelihood. Even our current vice president contributed to bail funds to get people out of jail, putting them back on the street to cause mayhem again and again. It seems the only time they've united against them, between themselves, the Democrats and Republicans, and a few independents they have, was on January 6th when they said there was an insurrection. Wake up, people. There wasn't an insurrection. It was an unfortunate incident.
Yeah, well, so again, please don't forget that while all of these riots are going on and the illegal border crossings and the closing of restaurants and schools being closed and no kids being allowed to be there, just remember this one thing. The fence is still up around the Capitol House with an armed army and a quick reaction force waiting for orders. So it shows that your elected officials, they are not really worried about how your safety is with the illegal immigrants, riotings, defunding the police so activists can buy mansions in California and $3 million worth of property. They're safe in Congress with wonderful security around them, including our military that want to get out of there and take care of the real problems of the United States with China, Russia, and Iran ruling the world right now.
Yeah, I'm using our military for standing army. It's not right.
Standing army against us.
Yep.
Against the people of the United States. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's funny.
How is that possible?
All last summer there was domestic violence in major cities across the United States, and nothing but silence. I should tell you a lot about our current situation, our current state of affairs. We elect these elected politicians don't care about we, the constituents.
No, and they're blaming it on the cops.
Right.
All of these problems in the United States are cops and Border Patrol. Well, cops and Border Patrol don't make legislation.
That's right.
They don't write the Constitution. There's laws out there, but it's too hard for them to do their job if they do it through the Constitution.
It's not only our congressional leaders that are to blame, because in our towns and cities, We also have politicians that don't do their job, but they create a narrative that they are always the victim. The town's always the victim. You know, each state has the authority and duty to stop rioters, but they fail to do so. What does that say about the politicians, Jack?
Yeah, you know, it says that they're too afraid to do. This is an immediate invasion, and it's going on so fast, and the federal government is not responding. Our troops should be at the border through the state
Constitution,
militia.
yep. You know, but last week there was another unfortunate incident in Minneapolis where a young man being placed under arrest. He had an outstanding warrant, but instead of listening to the officer's commands, he attempted to flee by getting back in his car. And at that time, another officer believed she pulled out her taser and yelled out, "Taser, taser, taser," 3 times. And that's standard protocol when you're going to use a taser. We've been through taser training and we know exactly what they need to do. Unfortunately, this officer ended up pulling her gun and shot the man 1 time. There is no doubt this is a tragic accident that could have been avoided in a few ways. First, the male should have listened to officer's command when he was placed under arrest, and he would be alive today. Officers do not go to work and say, "Today, I'm going to shoot someone, especially a minority."
Yeah,
that doesn't happen.
Representative Talib thinks you're wrong and off base on that, and she'll probably get this podcast thrown off at every network we put it on.
That's okay. You know, like I said, that doesn't happen. As a police officer, Jack did it for many years. We have never heard our fellow officers say that we're going to go out and shoot someone today. All right? We hope we never have to pull our gun because that is a last resort. You only pull your gun if you're going to use it. All right? Second, officers are trained by minimum standards, state minimum standards. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm saying is officers give 100% every day to go to work and protect their communities, but they do it with minimum standards. These states must give more financial resources to local and state police departments so officers can receive better training.
Yeah, so everything that's said about these riots and this mistake in the shooting, I know one thing, that my time as a police officer, this accident would never have happened. The perpetrator may have went home with a bloody lip, maybe an officer got a broken bone, but the perpetrator would have lived to be a defendant and go through through due process. And I know this is for a fact because while I was a police officer, the experts weren't worried about non-lethal policing, and we didn't have tasers, so we would have struggled with this victim of the shooting hand to hand until he was subdued, and he would have had his day in court. He wouldn't be being buried right now, and the police officer wouldn't be seeing her day in court.
Yeah, in corrections of 22 years and then 10 years additional as a police officer, we didn't go to work every day and say we're going to pull our gun. None of us did that. It's the last resort. And I'm sure this officer regrets that she shot this man believing she used her taser. However, the governor of Minnesota already vilified her as a racist without having all the facts. You know, and under Amendment 14 of the Constitution, this officer deserves due process, just as every ordinary citizen. I know they've charged her with manslaughter, and under 8 of the 8th Amendment of the Constitution, she has a right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury, where she can confront her witnesses and she can get counsel for her defense. But how can there be an impartial jury when the head of state has already condemned her and found her guilty before the facts? Again, the Democratic majority has created this false narrative that all cops are racist. I get it, there are a few cops out there that are no good, and we want to get rid of them. But the men and women we worked with, from corrections to policing, are great people that do a great job under stressful circumstances and lackluster leadership. Stop vilifying the police and place blame where it belongs. That's on the criminal. The criminal is the problem, not the police.
Yeah, well, the criminal now has a platform, and our politicians locally and federally gave it to them. So, again, to the hacks in Washington, D.C., and your local politicians with no experience. So, they cause another strain on the Constitution about that, what we were talking about before, a bill of attainder. So, I have one thing to say to our ignorant representatives, state and federal. If you don't understand the Constitution and how it works in a certain situation, then this is what you should do. Shut the hell up.
A lot of them should. In December of last year, the Minneapolis City Council started to defund the police movement. They stripped $8 million from its budget.
You know what the first thing to go is?
What?
Training.
Right. I totally agree with you. That money is supposed to go to violence prevention. As Jack said, the money could have been utilized for better training and better equipment for each officer on the road. So part of this failure rests with the city council.
You as a politician on the local level, governor, mayor, legislator, whatever you are, county executive, your responsibility is to have a functioning police department. And you hire the experts and your commissioners and your police chiefs. Let them run their police departments the way they're supposed to be. Again, if we weren't so worried about lethal weapons to take care of the law, this accident wouldn't happen. It would have been hand-to-hand combat in the street. He would have been outnumbered, subdued, arrested, day in court.
I just got to say this. I was watching Hannity the other night, and Geraldo Rivera and Dan Bongino were on. They were having a discussion.
Yeah, Geraldo, another empty suit.
Geraldo, you know what he said? We should put tasers on our dominant hand and then use a cross draw for our weapon. How ignorant is that?
Well, I think Dan Bongino got the upper hand on that argument because the man did the job on two different levels, local and federal. And I tell you what, I can guarantee you that there is not one Secret Service protecting the President of the United States that has a taser. I can guarantee you that not one person belonging to the military guarding the Capitol House has a taser.
No, they don't.
They have weaponry and hand-to-hand combat.
You know, this Minneapolis City Council, they listen to a handful of people that hate the police anyway. And they already want to disband the police. I mean, within 2 months of defunding them, residents seen a significant increase in crime. It's because of the ignorance of the city council. Many police officers have resigned. And I really don't blame them. I mean, they're getting stripped of their protections all across the country.
I don't know why they don't recall their governor.
That's a good point. You know, even the residents are concerned about not seeing police officers on the streets. And one council member even blamed it on the police department. Lisa Bender, the council president. This council member should resign because thanks to her and her colleagues that voted in favor of defunding the police, they have created this problem in the community. They've created the violent crime is up 20%. Taking away money from the police department lets the criminals know they can basically get away with murder. That shows the incompetence of the city council because 81% of the minority community want more police presence in their neighborhood.
Yeah, well, so here you go again. You got leaders in this country that are ruling through emotion instead of law and order. Stop listening to the activists and the empty suits like Geraldo, called experts, and use your state constitution and the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. If you try this, maybe you'll seem a little smarter and sound like you know what you're talking about. Because what you're doing right now, it makes no sense. And it makes you really seem like you're completely ignorant.
I think most of them are ignorant.
Well, that's something I would like to look into for a podcast and a program much later down the road. I would like to see what our representatives have done for a living before they became our representatives. Because I know AOC in New York.
She was a bartender.
Right. What did she do? I know Bernie Sanders. What did he do?
He was like the mayor of Vermont, wasn't he, or Rutland?
Yeah, but before that.
He was like he didn't have a job.
Right.
He lived off of us.
The present occupier of the White House, what did he do before he was a senator of the United States?
I'm not sure.
Right? What did Kamala Harris do before she was the Attorney General of California and then the senator? Did any of these people get any dirt under their nails? Have they ever lived amongst us? President Biden talks about all of these work ethics his father taught him. When did he ever practice them? What kind of job did he ever roll his sleeves up and put a hard day's worth of work in and sweat on his brow?
Now, talking about President Biden, he decided to start withdrawing our troops out of Afghanistan starting May 1st, with all forces out of there by September 11th.
Well, first off, September 11th, that's the number you... I thought it was September 1st.
Either or.
September 11th?
September 11th, September 1st.
Listen, every country that was involved in a war with the United States, Germany, North Korea, Japan, you know what's there? The military. But you know why the military's there? To protect their borders. And the reason why the military's there is they were placed there first to build that country back up. So have we built up Afghanistan again?
Nope.
So what do you think's going to happen? I mean, is this insanity? You're going to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result? Russia did this. Russia occupied that country for a decade and left without a country standing. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to let these tribes rule the country, let their religion be the government, and it's going to come down to the same thing.
As a former soldier in the Army, spending 1 year in Iraq, I think it's a grave mistake. I mean, this will open up Afghanistan to terrorist training camps to possibly launch another attack on the United States down the road.
It's a guarantee.
I do realize that 20 years is a long time to be sending our loved ones into harm's way, but their sacrifices do not go unnoticed. By having our military fighting the terrorists over there, it keeps us safe here.
You know what, though, Dennis? You know what's a long time? 70 years. 75 years. That's how long our military's been in Japan and Germany.
Yep.
All right? And they're there because we built those countries they're not third world countries. They're number one countries. They are thriving, successful countries because we built them back up and we didn't do it with Afghanistan. So, again...
But we give them like $1 billion a year, though.
Yeah, well...
Where's that money go?
Yeah.
Jack and I, as well as every patriotic American out there, appreciate our armed forces and our police more than they know. I mean, when I served in Iraq, I got to work alongside with some amazing soldiers in my unit. We were the 138th Public Affairs Detachment. And I also got to work with the 172nd Stryker Brigade out of Alaska. And I also worked with the soldiers out of Washington, the 3rd Infantry Division, 2nd Stryker Brigade, who are highly professional and do an amazing job. So when you see a military person out there, especially in uniform, thank them for their service, because what they do is important to our security, to our safety, and our freedoms that's granted to all of us in the United States Constitution.
Yeah, well, and thank you again, Dennis. I mean, that's a huge sacrifice, and I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad for everybody to come home. And I don't want to see these people have to stay in these foreign countries, but it would be very good if we built that country up and then had our troops stay there. It'd be a lot safer for them. And I want you to ask yourself this about our poor soldiers protecting the pansies of Washington, D.C. You don't think that they're biting at the bit to take care of the real problems of the United States, like China, Russia, Iran? You think that these soldiers wish every day that they were someplace doing their jobs instead of wiping the nose of crybaby representatives?
Jack Jr. just showed us that we're up to 300 members on our United States Constitutional Group webpage or Facebook page. So thank everyone for becoming members.
Listen to the podcast, folks. Become podcast members.
We appreciate your support. Get it out to your friends and family. And like I said, we want to be the biggest group on Facebook. So we're going to close up. Hopefully it's a lot shorter than last week. So my closing statement is this. There's a certain segment of society that want the rest of us to believe that police officers are bad people and racist and enjoy killing people. This is a false narrative.
And they say it seriously without a smile on their face. They think that they're right.
To all those police officers out there, especially the ones I've worked with and the ones Jack worked with, you do an amazing job. Keep up the great work, and the silent majority has your back. We know you don't have the correct resources to do your job properly. We don't know what the answer is, but believe us, we think you're amazing people. To all the protesters out there, you have a right under the Constitution to peaceably assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. I understand that we're at a crossroads right now, but that does not give you the right to burn down cities and destroy property that is not yours. That's people of all races have worked hard to build and create a business to try and better themselves and their families. As Americans, we are better than that. We are the leaders of the free world. Every country out there is watching us and wondering what the hell is wrong with us. Let's stop the violence, have a meaningful discussion about our grievances, and come to a mutual decision that is beneficial to all of us.
Amen. Amen. And to our police officers that are out in the streets still, and our Border Patrol men and women, and our military, God bless you guys, and thank you for your work. In closing, folks, I would just want to let you know next week we'll discuss talking about China, Russia, and Iran with the terrifying threats of our republic. And please, this is serious. Don't forget, after you listen to your pundits on TV and your friends and your family, understand the problems of this country. Stand up, brush yourself off, get ready to do some hard work, and let's right this country for us, our children, and our grandchildren.
See you next time at the tavern.